Alright, so this is the video response for Hans Rosling on HIV, new facts and studying data visuals. He starts out the video talking um, about the effects of HIV in 1985, and looking at it, kind of seemed like most of the countries were pretty even. I mean, Uganda was the most infected country at that time, but it was only at 5% of all adults were infected with HIV. Which is pretty low. And then as time gets closer to our current time, some of the countries went up, some of the countries went down, and he kind of talked about the different correlations, different reasons why that might be, why countries became more infected with HIV and why others did not. Um, so the ones that kind of went up, Uganda and Zimbabwe both went up really fast. And then Uganda kind of stopped, came back down, but Zimbabwe just kept going up. And then South Africa, for some reason, went up super high, which was surprising to me because as from his chart, it was comparing the how much money they were making and the percent of adults that were infected with HIV. And in South Africa, they're making quite a bit more money than all the other African countries, but yet they were higher than some of the African countries. Some African countries were higher than South Africa, but for how much money they make, I would have thought that they would have been lower. So it kind of goes to show that it's not necessarily money that is the factor in why people get infected with HIV. It's not that they don't have what they need. It's not because they don't have the technology to cure it or whatever. Although it is expensive. They said it's expensive, and the cost of care for someone that has HIV can be expensive. But he said the biggest problem, or the biggest way to take care of this problem is to prevent it. Just to have people be smart when they are having sexual relations with other people. He talked about how you shouldn't be with more than one partner in a month, or I don't know, it's kind of weird how the world, because of the ways that it's going, you can see the health effects that it has on it, and how just by having one wife and being loyal to her, it solves lots of problems, not just spiritually and not just within the family, but also on a health basis. You're able to be more healthy. We wouldn't have this problem with AIDS and HIV if everyone just stayed with one person. And so, yeah, he talked about the focus, how the focus should be on prevention, how we should do everything we can to prevent HIVs, just to let people be informed, talk about using condoms and just taking different health precautions. He talked about the diversity of the African countries, how some were really low, some were really high. Didn't really matter how much money you were making, you saw similar results. He said something, I think he said something about how African countries, the poorer ones, may not have had a higher percent because the ones that had it die faster or something like that. But I can't remember exactly what he said. And then he talked a lot about Africa and how Africa, even though it's only 4% of the world population, or yeah, 4% of the population, but has 50% of the HIV infection in the world. And so that was his main focus, just focused on Africa and why it's such a big problem there. And I think his final conclusion was just from sleeping with more than one people, and especially because the age difference between men and women is bigger. Older men are having relationships with younger women. Having more than one partner in 1 month can increase the chances of getting HIV. Just this, I don't know, the kind of attitude that our world has taken of just going around and just having relationships with whoever and whenever, and they think there's not going to be any big effects, but there's a lot of things, not just HIV and AIDS, but you can have pregnancy, STDs, other problems that can just be avoided just by living a chaste life. And I don't know, looking at a celestial point of view. That's why Heavenly Father wants us to live chaste lives, not is to be able to have the Spirit with us, but to also to prevent a lot of these problems. A lot of problems in marriages because their husband or wife wasn't faithful, and um, a lot of problems come because of people breaking the law of chastity. And it's a huge problem, not only in the church but outside of the church is a huge problem, and a lot of problems can be avoided just by keeping the commandments.